Hello, my name is Anshika.
And my name is Melissa.
And the purpose of this presentation is to inform you on the critical topic of Puerto Rican statehood. This has been a common discussion over the decades and has become more debated in recent years.
In order for a new state to be added to U.S., Congress must pass an act of Congress for admission. However, in doing so, Congress should not undermine the equal sovereignty of the states by putting conditions to the states' admissions. Commonly in U.S. history, many of today's states were originally territories before being admitted as a state.
As of November 2024, 58.48% of Puerto Rican voters supported statehood over independence or free association. Despite this, the Supreme Court ruled Puerto Rico remains an unincorporated territory with no clear path to statehood. Congress attempted to pass a final referendum in 2022 and again in 2023, but neither effort moved forward.
To date, the most important piece of U.S. legislation concerning Puerto Rico's statehood was the Puerto Rico Federal Relations Act of 1950. This act authorized Puerto Rico to adopt a constitution defining its internal governance structure, which was later executed by a constitutional convention and was voted into effect on March 3, 1952.
The main executive action relating to the topic was the 1992 presidential memorandum by George H.W. Bush, in which he declared that the U.S. would stand by whatever stance Puerto Rico had on its status. Future presidents, such as Obama and Biden, had similar opinions on the matter and expressed full support of the territory's decision, whether statehood, independence, or otherwise.
Most critical court ruling was in 1903 and was made by the Supreme Court. The insular cases had the Supreme Court declare that Puerto Rico was not fully part of the United States and it could be treated like a foreign nation because the Constitution did not fully apply. This made it clear that Puerto Rico isn't a state and would be the biggest historical precedent to prevent it from becoming a state.
In the recent election for Puerto Rico, many Puerto Ricans voted overwhelmingly for statehood to become the 51st state of the United States. They want statehood to achieve full U.S. citizenship, have the right to vote in presidential elections, and access to federal programs and benefits. Puerto Rico has a limited voice in the federal government, so they can be admitted as another state of the U.S. with a simple majority in Congress.
One example of how a liberal country addressed Arctic issues is when Greenland was admitted into Denmark. This allowed Denmark to join the Arctic Council, giving it the ability to collaborate with powerful nations like the US and Russia on Arctic affairs. Through this association, Denmark has been able to work with other countries on important regional concerns such as environmental protection, scientific research, and sustainable development.
When the Philippines gained independence from Spain in 1898, some Filipinos hoped for American statehood to gain economic support and military protection. However, many Americans opposed granting statehood due to racial prejudices and the Philippines' distant location of over 8,000 miles away. Ultimately, the U.S. chose to govern the Philippines as a territory rather than make it an American state.
Most of the support comes from Puerto Rican citizens themselves, regardless of their political standing. However, it is much more complicated in the United States. About 59% of Americans reported being in favor of Puerto Rico's transition to statehood. Most of this population seems to be made of Democrats.
On the other hand, the opposition seems to be growing within Republican voters. Many believe that allowing Puerto Ricans to vote in elections would skew the vote to be more liberal. Several outspoken Republican politicians have gone against the issue simply because they do not believe Puerto Rican citizens should be able to give input to the U.S. government.
Israel, a conservative country, has consistently opposed Palestinian statehood by prioritizing national security and historical claims to the land. Following conflicts such as the October 7 Hamas attacks, efforts to resettle Gaza have gained political backing. This reflects a broader conservative strategy of rejecting statehood for disputed regions to maintain control of their own country.
An example of a liberal country dealing with this issue is when the U.S. made Hawaii its 50th state. It took decades for Hawaii to become a full state, but during the Cold War, the U.S. added Hawaii as politicians believed that Hawaii could assist with trade and military interests in Eastern Asia. On August 21st, 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state of the USA.
The Puerto Rico Status Act, granting the territory the choice between three non-territorial options, was introduced and passed in the House of Representatives in December 2022, but did not move forward due to the lack of support from the Senate. The bill was reintroduced in 2023, but has not progressed since. This was one of the first serious attempts to resolve Puerto Rico's status issue by Congress.
There is no definitive path that Puerto Rico can take that will ensure their admission into the United States. Opinions regarding the future of the issue vary heavily. Many believe that growing support within the states will create a push strong enough to complete the transition. Others reference the surprising shrinking support from young Puerto Ricans to support their idea that Puerto Rico would be better off on its own.
Thank you for your time.